Are we truly free, or just comfortable prisoners of pleasure? In today's world, freedom is celebrated as the highest ideal. We revel in endless choices: what to watch, what to eat, who to become. Modern technology promises liberation from boredom, pain, and even death. Yet beneath this dazzling surface lies a deeper question. Are we actually free, or merely pacified by convenience and pleasure? Our lives are increasingly governed by algorithms, our desires subtly shaped by corporate interests, and our time consumed by distractions designed to keep us hooked. In this supposed age of liberty, have we simply exchanged one form of control for another? More pleasant, but perhaps more insidious? This paradox was chillingly imagined nearly a century ago by Aldous Huxley in Brave New World. In his dystopian vision, people are not oppressed by violence or fear, but sedated by pleasure, entertainment, and artificial contentment. There are no chains, only desires fulfilled before they can deepen into needs. Citizens embrace their servitude, not out of ignorance, but because the alternative, freedom with all its uncertainties, is too uncomfortable. Huxley's world is not our world, not exactly. But the parallels are difficult to ignore. As society becomes more obsessed with instant gratification and emotional comfort, we must ask whether our so-called freedom is being subtly redefined and diminished. This script explores how the relentless pursuit of pleasure, rather than enhancing freedom, is silently eroding it. It examines the seductive power of comfort, the illusion of choice, and the hidden costs of a society addicted to feeling good. In doing so, it asks not only what freedom means, but what we're willing to sacrifice to keep it. The illusion of freedom. Traditionally, freedom is defined as autonomy, the ability to make decisions for oneself without coercion. It encompasses self-determination, the power to shape one's own life course, and the opportunity to reflect, choose, and act based on one's values and reasoning. In a truly free society, individuals are not only unbound by physical constraints, but also free from manipulation and undue influence in their decision-making. Modern society, however, often presents a distorted version of this freedom, a simulacrum. At first glance, we appear freer than ever. We can choose from thousands of products, vote in elections, express ourselves on social media, and pursue endless lifestyles. But many of these choices are pre-structured by forces we barely notice. Algorithms predict and shape our preferences. Advertising steers our desires, and social norms create boundaries for what is deemed acceptable. The overwhelming number of options does not necessarily equate to meaningful freedom. It can instead obscure how limited and conditioned our choices really are. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe once warned, "None are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free." This quote captures the core of the paradox. We often feel the greatest sense of autonomy when we are, in fact, the most subtly controlled. Believing we are freely choosing our news, our lifestyles, our beliefs, we become less likely to question the invisible hands that guide us. This illusion of freedom creates a deeply rooted contradiction. On the one hand, we experience the psychological satisfaction of making choices. On the other, those choices are frequently curated, manipulated, or constrained. The danger lies in mistaking this curated experience for genuine liberty. If we fail to recognize the external structures influencing our decisions, we may stop striving for deeper autonomy and settle into complacency, free only in appearance. In this way, the modern individual is often caught in a paradox, saturated with choices, yet steered by unseen forces. True freedom demands more than a menu of options. It requires the critical awareness to understand where those options come from and the courage to question them. In Brave New World, Aldous Huxley presents a dystopian society where control is maintained through pleasure, distraction, and psychological conditioning, in stark contrast to George Orwell's vision in 1984, where power is upheld by fear, surveillance, and brutal repression. While Orwell imagined a world dominated by totalitarianism, censorship, and punishment, epitomized by Big Brother and the thought police, Huxley foresaw a society where people are pacified by pleasure and consumerism, willingly giving up freedom for comfort. Huxley's model has proven more relevant in today's world. Modern society often mirrors Brave New World's mechanisms of control, where entertainment, technology, and consumer culture serve to distract and pacify the population. In the novel, the drug soma is a key tool of control. It eliminates pain and discomfort, creating artificial happiness and making rebellion or dissatisfaction nearly impossible. Similarly, today's society increasingly turns to pharmaceuticals, entertainment, and social media for instant gratification and escapism, numbing individuals to deeper issues. Trivialized sex is another element Huxley uses to maintain control. In Brave New World, sex is recreational and detached from emotional intimacy, promoting shallow pleasure over meaningful relationships. This undermines personal bonds that might lead to independent thought or resistance. Modern media's hypersexualization and the rise of hookup culture reflect this trend, emphasizing physical gratification over emotional connection. Emotional conditioning, starting from infancy, is also central in Huxley's world. Through hypnopedic learning, citizens are programmed to accept their roles without question. They are taught to consume, obey, and avoid anything unpleasant. Today's advertising, educational systems, and media often condition individuals to accept societal norms and value consumption, reinforcing conformity under the guise of choice. Ultimately, Huxley's vision is more subtle, but more insidious. By offering pleasure instead of pain, it creates a world where people choose their own subjugation, making resistance unlikely. As Huxley warned, people may be so distracted by entertainment and gratification that they come to love their oppression. Pleasure as a tool of control. Pleasure, often viewed as a natural and benign part of human experience, can serve as a subtle yet powerful mechanism of control. In modern societies, control no longer relies solely on overt force or repression. Instead, it frequently operates through gratification, particularly instant gratification, which dulls critical thinking and promotes passivity. The psychology behind this manipulation is well illustrated by B.F. Skinner's theory of operant conditioning. Skinner's operant conditioning is based on the idea that behavior can be shaped and maintained through rewards, positive reinforcement, or punishments. In his experiments, animals learned to perform certain tasks to receive a reward, such as food. Over time, the promise of a pleasurable outcome became enough to drive behavior, regardless of whether it served the animal's long-term interests. This same framework is increasingly applied in human environments, particularly through digital technology, to encourage behaviors that serve the interests of corporations and platforms rather than individuals. Modern digital stimuli such as social media likes, notifications, and algorithm-driven entertainment mirror the reward systems described by Skinner. Every like, comment, or swipe delivers a small dose of dopamine, reinforcing the behavior and encouraging users to return repeatedly. This constant, low-level pleasure keeps people engaged, but not necessarily fulfilled. In fact, this stimulation fosters a kind of psychological dependency. Individuals come to crave these rewards, often checking their phones reflexively, even in the absence of any meaningful interaction. The result is a society increasingly driven by short-term pleasure and distraction, rather than long-term reflection or resistance. Critical thinking, which requires focus, time, and discomfort, is sidelined in favor of the immediate and the pleasurable. People are more likely to accept advertising messages, consume without questioning, and go along with prevailing ideologies, not because they are coerced, but because they are comforted and entertained. This dynamic represents a subtle but pervasive form of control. Unlike censorship or authoritarian suppression, which provoke resistance, the use of pleasure pacifies. It creates a compliant population, less likely to question power structures or seek systemic change. In this way, pleasure functions as a velvet cage, soft and seductive, but ultimately limiting. What appears to be freedom, the endless ability to scroll, stream, or click, becomes a mechanism of behavioral containment. Thus, in the age of constant digital stimulation, pleasure doesn't just accompany control, it becomes its primary instrument. In Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, soma is a powerful symbol of emotional control and social pacification. A drug used to smooth over anxiety, grief, or discontent, keeping the population docile and compliant. Today, while we don't have a literal soma, modern society exhibits striking parallels through psychotropic drugs, digital technology, and entertainment. These mechanisms, though different in form, often serve a similar purpose: to mute discomfort, distract from existential angst, and maintain social equilibrium. One of the clearest parallels lies in the widespread use of psychotropic drugs, particularly antidepressants and anxiolytics. While these medications have valid therapeutic purposes and have helped millions manage mental health disorders, their growing normalization reflects a cultural shift toward emotional regulation through chemistry. Like soma, which eliminates the need to confront pain or challenge societal norms, some modern drugs can be used not only to treat illness, but also to suppress natural emotional responses to stress, loss, or dissatisfaction. This raises ethical questions. Are we pathologizing human emotion? Are we medicating away the discomfort that could otherwise lead to personal growth or societal change? Technology, too, has become a kind of digital soma. Smartphones, social media, and streaming platforms offer constant stimulation and distraction, delivering short-term dopamine hits that can numb deeper emotional or psychological unrest. The average person checks their phone hundreds of times per day, often reflexively, not out of necessity, but habit. Just as soma offers escape from the real, our screens provide an easily accessible refuge from boredom, anxiety, or introspection. This compulsive engagement often undermines mental clarity, shortens attention spans, and reduces tolerance for boredom, all while keeping users pacified. Entertainment serves as both a comfort and a tool for social conditioning, just as it does in Huxley's world. Whether through binge-worthy shows, viral trends, or endlessly scrollable feeds, entertainment relaxes and distracts, but also subtly molds perceptions. It can reinforce consumerist values, shape identity through branding, or normalize certain behaviors and ideologies. The saturation of entertainment leaves little room for quiet reflection or meaningful dissent, echoing Huxley's concern that pleasure, not oppression, may become the ultimate form of control. Underlying much of this digital landscape is algorithmic conditioning. Social media platforms and streaming services use machine learning to feed users content that aligns with their preferences, creating echo chambers and reducing exposure to challenging or diverse ideas. This tailored reality reinforces confirmation bias and dulls critical thinking. As algorithms become more sophisticated, autonomy erodes. Choices feel self-directed, but are often subtly manipulated, guided by profit motives rather than personal well-being. In sum, Huxley's vision of a pacified society, numbed by soma, finds modern analogues in our reliance on mood-regulating drugs, immersive technologies, and algorithm-driven entertainment. While these tools are not inherently dystopian, their misuse can anesthetize emotional depth, curtail introspection, and undermine the very freedoms that define individuality and humanity. The cost, what we lose, 350 to 400 words. In Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, the pursuit of comfort and pleasure comes at a staggering cost. In exchange for a society free from war, poverty, and suffering, humanity surrenders genuine freedom, emotional depth, and the capacity for critical self-reflection. What appears on the surface as utopia is, in truth, a dystopia of hollow pleasures and profound losses. One of the most significant sacrifices is the suppression of pain and discomfort, key components of personal growth and self-awareness. In the world state, citizens are conditioned to avoid any unpleasant feeling through instant gratification, primarily via the drug soma. While pain is certainly unwelcome, it also functions as a teacher, pushing individuals to reflect, adapt, and grow. Without suffering, there can be no true understanding of joy, no reason to change, and no space for the development of a resilient inner self. As John the Savage declares, "I don't want comfort. I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I want sin." His defiance underscores Huxley's message. To be fully human is to embrace the full range of experience, not just the pleasurable parts. Moreover, the society's obsession with superficial pleasures prevents the formation of deep intimacy and authentic human relationships. Sex, for example, is completely divorced from love or emotional connection. Promiscuity is not only normalized but mandated, with slogans like, "Everyone belongs to everyone else." This trivialization of sex undermines the potential for vulnerability, commitment, and true emotional intimacy. Without these elements, relationships become shallow transactions rather than sources of meaning and identity. Perhaps the most haunting cost is the loss of critical reflection. When pleasure is the primary goal, there is no room or need for philosophical inquiry, art, literature, or spiritual searching. The citizens of the world state do not question their existence. They simply consume and comply. In Huxley's own words, he warned of a future in which people would be reduced to passivity and egoism and would come to love their servitude. In this chilling prophecy, the very essence of what makes us human, our ability to question, to feel deeply, and to seek truth, is sacrificed on the altar of comfort. Ultimately, Brave New World asks us to consider, is a life free from pain worth the price of losing what makes life meaningful? In a world overflowing with instant gratification, it's easy to forget to pause and reflect. We scroll, click, binge, and consume, often without asking ourselves why. But what if the comfort we constantly seek is quietly eroding our ability to be present, to think deeply, and to live meaningfully? I invite you to reflect on your relationship with pleasure and distraction. When was the last time you sat with boredom, discomfort, or silence, without reaching for a screen? Do we chase comfort because we need it, or because we fear what lies beyond it? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones. True freedom is not the unlimited ability to indulge every desire the moment it arises. It's the strength to choose purpose over impulse, to delay gratification in service of something greater. Freedom lives in awareness, in our ability to say, "I don't need this right now," and in doing so, reclaim control over our time, our attention, and our lives. Start small. Unplug for a moment longer than feels comfortable. Embrace a little stillness. Read something that challenges you. Spend time without needing to be entertained. In these quiet spaces, meaning begins to surface. This is not about rejecting pleasure, but about redefining it. When we stop numbing ourselves, we start feeling again: joy, sorrow, wonder, truth. And with that comes the power to live with intention. Awareness is the first step. Once we see the patterns that bind us, we can begin to loosen their grip. In doing so, we open the door to a freedom far deeper than convenience. A freedom rooted in choice, presence, and purpose. In conclusion, Brave New World presents a chilling vision of a society where the illusion of freedom is maintained through engineered pleasure and distraction. Citizens believe they are free, yet every choice is predetermined. Their desires manipulated by a system that values stability over individuality. Huxley's Dystopia reveals how control through pleasure can be more effective and insidious than control through fear. Today, modern parallels abound. Algorithms curate our choices, consumer culture dictates our desires, and digital entertainment numbs critical thought. The cost of this illusion is profound. Our autonomy, our depth of emotion, our very humanity. As we navigate the digital age, it becomes increasingly urgent to question how pleasure is used to pacify us and whether our freedoms are genuine or manufactured. True freedom requires discomfort, reflection, and resistance to manipulation. Aldous Huxley warned, "The real hopeless victims of totalitarianism are those who were content with their servitude." His words remind us that comfort can be a cage, and only by confronting that truth can we begin to reclaim our freedom.